Whenever I go for interviews and they see me, they sort of have a perception about me like, who the hell is this guy?
When people meet you in public, do they call you jammy pants?
Yeah, they say Jammy Pants 4. When the boards had ended, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to get 99%, go to SRCC, and I'm going to become a consultant.
Who's your dream person to interview?
Oh my god! Where are
Finally!
you?
The internet believes that you have a soft corner for Ranbir Kapoor.
Hmm.
And is that true?
When your perspective is that you didn't like it, oh my god, the PR calls and messages that you get is insane.
The number one question that everybody asked was, Jammy, are you single? Hello, Anmol. Welcome to Chumma Conversations.
Oh my god. I was getting so many messages that you're finally on the podcast, so I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, and honestly, looking at the number of questions that came in after I put up that story, I realized that your fans and your followers want to know so many things about you.
Oh god.
They're really curious, so I'm excited for them to listen to this, to listen to this episode and get to know you better.
I'm also the random commenter on your reels whenever there's some Malayalam content or some North South commentary happening. So I guess, yeah.
So, you're actually one of the few people that I have met before I've become a content creator that I'm having on the podcast right now. For context, for whoever's watching, I used to work with Anmol's brother. And
Ooh.
yeah, wait, you didn't remember that?
No, no, no. I remember like one of back in the day, probably 2015 or 16 was when you
Yeah,
were with CNN.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, one thing about Anmol's family is they are very large-hearted, they're very generous and warm. So they created like a home away from home for all of us. Like your parents were always welcoming, no matter how many people were there or whoever showed up. So I want to say thanks to them for that. Uh, and at that time, we knew of you as Ayushman's younger brother, who's a dancer and has a YouTube channel. Like that's all we knew, and we didn't know it was going to be like this huge thing that it is today. So it's been really nice seeing your journey go from being known as a dancer with a small
Yeah.
YouTube channel to now, that you head this like amazing YouTube channel and you have fans from all across India and the world now. So were you always like a movie fan growing up?
Oh, definitely a movie fan growing up. I think the parents sort of created almost as a regular feature that we were going out in the weekends and watching films. My mother was associated with the Times of India, so
Hmm.
we would get passes to these film festivals that would happen in Delhi. So I
Wow.
remember as early as being 4 or 5, going for the Lion King and Phantom and a lot of these superhero films and animated Disney movies at City Fort, and not really falling in love with the movies because of that. But I remember there used to be two prominent theaters in Delhi, Chanakya Puri and Priya, and that
Hmm.
time it was like prime Shah Rukh Khan and Ritik was doing his debut and all of that was happening. And that's when I really sort of fell in love with it, and especially the music and dance of it all. I remember the first movie I probably saw was Josh, which was an adaptation of West Side Story. And then I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh my God, like this is it. So I did fall in love with the films, and it was almost a regular feature just on the weekends to go for any Hindi movie that comes out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And would you all have like a discussion about the film on the way home?
There were definitely strong opinions about those films.
Uh-huh.
I guess I wasn't intellectually well versed to have like a debate with them about it.
Uh-huh.
I anyway feel like I'm not really well versed, at least at that time, to communicate what I exactly felt about the film. While I
Hmm.
had these orators in my house who had like context about like social commentary and stuff, which was going over my head.
Hmm.
Um, but that's only happened since I've probably got out of school. That I wanted to discuss about movies because I felt like the market wasn't there in India,
Mm-hmm.
other than the sort of gatekeepers who were doing it for the past 20 years. So that was only something that got integrated into my subconscious later. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you call movie critics gatekeepers. Why do you feel so?
I mean, if you look at it, it still exists.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll tell you like a very small example of say how social media even today works, where there have been these creators who have been associated with big media
Mm-hmm.
since the past 20-25 years, and there's a sense of command that they have, and a respect among actors and producers as well. So their perspective is something that they regard as probably a product of experience, and that it holds some ground. While these new people have come in, like me and a few other creators who create content on YouTube, and we probably do 7 to 10 times their numbers whenever they do
Mm-hmm.
upload any content. Um, but it perturbs them that these young chaps have come who probably have no idea about how the system works, how films
Mm-hmm.
work, and all of that. And that was probably the system that I wanted to sort of break through, because there is still a perception that we're the outsiders who've come in and have taken
Yeah.
over, and they're not particularly happy about it. And
Mm-hmm.
this is true for actors as well. Whenever I go for interviews and they see me, they sort of have a perception about me, like, who the hell is this guy who's
Mm-hmm.
asking me these questions. It's probably later that when I'm asking them questions which probably are relevant, they're like, okay, he's probably legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
But there is almost at first glance a judgment of like, why is this guy talking about movies?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the person who's slightly elderly, who's spent 20-25 years with their jhola on the side without being judgmental, it's like, yeah, this guy's legitimate.
Uh-huh.
He's been there. And there is a sense of I guess, what was it? There was a sense of a clique and an
Mm.
echo chamber that journalists were happy with. And the moment social media broke it, I feel like they weren't too particularly happy with it, other than those who adapted with the new systems. Yeah.
Yeah, adapting is the key word because I also see this among content creators as well. There are people who were very popular when a couple of 5 years ago, but now probably are not able to adapt to the changing trends as fast. So they often talk about, oh, the younger creators ruined everything for us. They're making things superficial and all of that. But the fact of the matter is, when things changed, you couldn't keep up with the change. You don't have the pulse on your audience to understand what works today. So I totally get what you mean, but it must be quite intimidating when you go for these press events, right? And you see all of these very established faces, and you are like, "Hi."
You know, I must say that a lot of them are kind, if they interact with you, or they want to have a sense of understanding how the market is evolving. But
Mhm.
90% of them don't get it, and 90% of them are dismissive of it.
Mhm.
One of the main reasons why I don't go for a lot of these press events is because one, you get integrated into a system where this clique is going to believe a particular way,
Mhm.
and they almost ostracize a thought which is probably not echoing the same sentiments. And the second thing is that it almost creates pressure, because the production companies associated with those movies are organizing those press events, and then
Mhm.
you get done with those movies, and the talent and the producers and the distributors are just standing outside like, you loved it, right? And you're like, yeah, sure. And that's why this perception has been created about what is termed as samosa critics, which is that
Right.
you give them a samosa and a free coke, and they'll be happy with it, and you'll get your four
Mhm.
stars. So I tend to avoid these events and try to be as unbiased as I can be. But there is still a sense of a lot of these young kids who are come from a perspective that is what the audiences are perceiving about the movies. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's exactly why we started. We started because also we wanted a general perspective about whether you liked a film or not, versus
Mm-hmm.
um, years of having a close connection with actors, producers, and this relationship almost, I feel like, creates an issue with having an unbiased perspective, because
Mm-hmm.
there's so many relationships you've developed over those years which we are not associated with. We don't have that pressure. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like as we're spending more and more years associated with film and film criticism, there is a constant push by the by the producers, by everyone, to create this relationship, which
Yeah.
probably will, uh, I don't know whether it'll affect the content and why we started in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it doesn't. The constant attempt is not to get enamored by it all,
Yeah.
and just acknowledge why you started the journey.
Yeah, it must be hard because on one hand, you're trying to establish relationships so that you get these interviews and then you meet these actors in person, you talk to them, but they might be in a movie that you absolutely did not like. And then does it ever get awkward that there's a movie that you've criticized and then you're going to interview the actors the next time?
See, right now I had created almost a memo that I was saying that I'll only interview the actors if I really like the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's such a it's a horrible like memo to keep, because they only want to interview you before their movie release.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're only available before their movie release, and you only get their messages before their movie release. So it's they just want PR and promotion, and no matter how much I may associate those actors as people I've seen over the years, they're associated with companies that just want to use you as marketing tools.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that you have to get accustomed to. And I feel like they were bang on about like meeting your heroes and like how
Never
it.
meet your heroes?
Oh God, yeah, yeah. There have been too many instances of me being like, okay, everybody is just in a transactional relationship right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are a few, actors, lovely actors who I've interacted with, who are considered to be those underrated actors who still give you time when they're not associated with an upcoming project.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the machinery is just for you to promote their show and
Yeah.
or movie. And when your perspective is that you didn't like it, oh my God, the PR calls and messages that you get is insane. So that's also one of the main reasons why I get like they don't invite me in mostly like all of these like premiere shows and stuff, because they're like, screw this guy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it
Are
is
they
what it is.
ever like, you please take down the, or we will not invite you for another interview if you don't take this video down?
Oh, it's happened multiple times. But I remember what happened was that I had seen a film which I particularly didn't like, and I had tweeted about the film,
Mm-hmm.
and I had immediately got a call from the PR to remove it because it was insensitive or something or the other. It wasn't insensitive at all. It made no sense why I should delete it. But there've been, I mean, I get that perspective, but that's when it became very clear to me that I should create a distance with the PR, because
Mm-hmm.
all they want is a good headline which they can chapo on the poster with whatever
Mm-hmm.
stars that you've given. And I remember the actor calling me and saying that what my tweet insinuates, and I was like, if actors and the PR are so closely knit on what's going out there,
Mm-hmm.
what people need to acknowledge is that everything's manipulated. You've got producers from like the most influential producers who are openly saying that they buy PR, and nothing's sacred now and nothing's unbiased.
Hmm.
So if you're creating that perception, then no one's going to believe anything.
Correct. Yeah.
Be it the box office numbers, be it the perspective about the film. So I feel like it's also self-induced that they've created a system which is manipulated, and then they're also complaining about it when somebody has a fresh perspective. So
Yeah. Did
it's
you
it's a,
finally delete that tweet?
Oh, I had to. It's almost because then I remember having that conversation with them and saying that, listen, then I'm not gonna ever come for any premiere or whatever. And I felt like they felt a little bad, and then they give you compensatory interview opportunities. Oh, why don't you
Hmm.
interview this guy, and then we're going to give you the big opportunities. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to be on this cycle again and again.
Yeah.
So the PR is definitely its own machinery, which I feel like has become a beast of its own.
Hmm.
And but a distance, it's a sort of double-edged sword. Do you create a distance so that you don't get the opportunity to interview the actors, or
Hmm.
you create a close connection and then you just become a puppet?
Yeah.
So it's
And I
whatever you
think
do.
even as the audience, we kind of can tell when the reviews are genuine and when they are when they are biased, because whenever a movie comes out, I know exactly whose review to look out for to understand, okay, is this movie good or not? There are sometimes I see reviews in the newspapers and they're giving like 5 stars for the most
It's
rubbish
hilarious
films.
because my dad is still a very avid newspaper reader, and
Hmm.
he sees my review on the TV. He puts on YouTube and watches it, and then he tells me, "But Times of India gave it 5 stars," and I'm like, "Stop reading Times of India. What are you doing?"
Uh,
All print media is bought. Everything on social media, especially on Twitter, is purchased. There are
mhm,
literally deals that you're getting off 3 to 5 tweets would be this much a monetary compensation. It's
mhm.
literally an entire racket that's going on. So, I mean, you definitely have to then pick and choose amongst all this madness. Okay, this is the guy that I'm going to associate
Yeah.
with, for a fresh perspective. I was speaking to Anupama Chopra also. She's been in the game for the past 20, 25 years. She's like,
Mhm.
because of my perspective, there have been so many times where that particular actor or production company just doesn't want to associate with her anymore. And there have been
Mm.
years of silence. So that's the price you pay. And I feel like it's worth it because you can sleep at night.
Yeah. And also, the trust of your audience is so precious because listening to you, they're going to spend their hard earned money. And now movie tickets are so expensive.
Oh, God.
They're going to give their money and their time to something. So I think as a creator, especially, you hold that very much in value because you're getting that immediate feedback from your from your no, from your audience, right?
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
oh, I like this film or I didn't like this film. Um,
It's especially then it reflects on the kind of audience that you're meeting. Say on a regular basis, when I do go for movies and people do interact with me, it uh, it makes me happy that they appreciate the unbiased nature of the videos, and then you can clearly tell what kind of audience is connecting with you. And over a period of time, I've noticed that a lot of the comment section under my reviews are about the film, debating about the film
mhm.
and several aspects of it. And that's exactly the film discourse I like dreamt of.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
what you also seek for. So yeah.
Yeah, you've built a nice community. I think I've seen the comments. People go into like great depths of what they want to talk about. Has there been any time where you've had a review which has gone completely opposite public opinion? And how have you been able to sort of express your dissenting opinion?
So it's happened recently. I think the most amount of probably unanimous hatred that I must have got was for Kerala Story.
Mm,
And, it was a film that I found to be inflammatory with its take. I found it to be extremely black and white on a very nuanced subject. And I
mm-hmm.
felt like it wanted to extract a reaction from the audience versus wanting to say something.
Right.
And that was my perspective. And what happened was that when you do focus on reviews of these movies, at least for in the last 4 or 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
movies have become extremely polarizing, have become tools for political debates,
Yeah.
etc. So when you review these movies, the comments become extremely communal
Mm-hmm.
with their perspectives, and you can't control it because the algorithm pushes it for the people who are seeking out for it,
Yeah.
right? So what you notice when you review a movie like that is that people who are not regular viewers of your channel are now in your comment section. So imagine that I would get an average of say 1500 or 2000 comments per
Mm-hmm.
video. Now it had 10,000 comments, and all those comments are not about the film,
Right.
because that would become reductive with what they feel like.
Mm.
So it becomes about their personal experiences and these anecdotes. And
Mm-hmm.
these anecdotes are obviously not proofread. They're anecdotes that are being given by thousands of users, and it became nothing about the film.
Mm-hmm.
And so, on a regular basis, when I would see that most of the discourse in the comments was about the film and its facets, suddenly it had turned into something else, and how I
Mm-hmm.
was a privileged liberal brat who doesn't understand the reality of India. You
Right.
know, so that was probably the most nasty it's got. And I feel like last time that it got really nasty was before this was Lal Singh Chadda, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like Amir Khan just bore the brunt of being at a time where everybody was just going after him for the smallest of things. And I didn't particularly like the film, but the discourse again wasn't about the film. It was about
Mm-hmm.
Amir Khan and his political leanings and what he
Mm.
personally thinks. And I never want to. Even though I have videos which talk about like perspectives about celebrity perspectives given by celebrities which I probably don't personally agree with,
Mm-hmm.
the movie reviews are never about that.
Yeah.
And when it transitions to become about that, it becomes really ugly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would imagine, I mean, you're saying so calmly that people have been calling you what a privileged liberal brat, but you're saying it very calmly, and I'm sure it must have been a bit disturbing for you to see all of these comments like pouring in.
See, what happens is I am not affected by the DMs which threaten you, or say things particularly nasty about you or your family or whatever it is. um, what I get slightly perturbed by is when a perspective then gets taken up by um, people who think about who have a contrarian opinion
Hmm.
versus me, and then it's about assumptions on my personality. you know so when
Okay,
it
they
comes
make it very personal. Yeah.
yeah, and when it becomes about he's a Bombay brat, and he's a South Bombay boy, and it's like, what? I've never grown up in South Bombay. So it becomes about things that don't even have a basis or have any fact related to the film, and it's all about me and my personality and what I've thought about for years. I remember somebody did like a deep dive into my school education and how it reflects on my perspective, and
Was this
on
a
the
YouTube video?
no, somebody created a video who also does like movie reviews, but I feel like, the best thing that I can do is stick to what the content is, and
Mm-hmm.
stick to what I personally believe in, and never pay heed to, several of these perspectives that are put out there. And, Twitter is probably the worst of the lot, where,
Yeah.
they want to really like morph your pictures and do things with it and whatever it is.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
but I feel like, the cycle of social media is also such that it passes by so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Within a week everyone forgets about it. So
Yeah.
the moment you give it fire or power, I feel like you let the internet win. And I feel like the never ending battle with trolls is you will constantly combat them.
Yes.
So they will
And
come and go.
a lot of people often comment or tweet just because they want your attention. So they'll say the
Exactly.
most insane shit.
Yeah.
And when you reply and you're like, what are you talking about? They're like, oh, I just wanted you to notice me. Like that, why would you say that? Such a disgusting thing.
No, Twitter. I mean, Instagram's equally also like can get out of hand. But I feel
Mm.
like I think I learned from the perspective of back in the day I had done a video on how I thought that foreign reaction channels were a kind of predatory with their
Mm.
content, and how and it stemmed from while we were in lockdown,
Mhm.
they were reacting to India under lockdown videos and like drone footages of like Delhi or Mumbai being under lockdown. And then, some celebrities were passing away, and they were like reacting to 7 8 videos of them
Mm.
immediately after they passed. So I felt like, so my entire perspective was how there is still a huge sort of white hangover that Indians are
Mhm.
going through, and they feel validated from their perspective, even though it comes from no education on the history of cinema, probably.
Yeah.
And it led to such a crazy response of DCs being like, "Oh, you're just jealous of the views that they're getting," but nobody was
Mhm.
really looking at what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
And I remember getting really involved in the discourse and feeling like, okay, there's no point in it,
Mhm.
because I provided my perspective, but now it's becoming about what was my intention behind the video.
Yeah.
And when it becomes about that, it's like, okay, you're not looking at the content then.
Mhm.
So I feel like let them, the cycle will continue again and again, but I feel like you stick to your content and what you believe in, and carry on doing it, because this will come and go unless you've done something really like screwed up.
Unless you get cancelled. But it's a very valid point that I don't think you realize when you're in the moment, when you're getting all these hate comments, you feel like it's the end of the world. But honestly, people will forget in like a day or two, max a week. Like when you think about the biggest controversies that celebrities were in, which is some of what your videos talk about, right? Like you have those eight biggest moments. And when I watch those videos, I'm like, oh yeah, huh, that happened. Oh, I don't. You would like recall like that had no impact on me now of how I perceive them. So yeah, it's a good lesson, but it takes a while to get there. It's a hard process to get there.
Oh, it is. It is. See, I remember very clearly when that entire Besharam Rang Pathan controversy happened, and
Mm-hmm.
any sane person would be like, okay, this argument, it makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why it's such a huge debate? Why
Right.
at every primetime debate this is being discussed
Yeah,
on a
on
color?
primetime news. On
Primetime news,
primetime news.
exactly.
Yeah.
And sense prevails later when people are celebrating the same song in the theater, in packed
Mm-hmm.
theaters, and you're like, there was a month news cycle about this,
Mm-hmm.
and no one cares. So yeah, it passes, especially when it's such sometimes it's so stupid, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. You were talking about you mentioned perspective a lot, and perspective is something that takes a long time to build and develop. And you've sort of garnered that from a very young age. What was it like for you in school? Like, were you always interested in like literature and philosophy and getting deeper into the human psyche of things?
Actually, quite the contrary, I would believe. I was a sports kid. I was basically playing every sport, and I was academically inclined, but I wasn't that well versed with the language. I would still say it took a lot of reading and probably a lot of bullying, which helped me in really uh, enhancing that craft of how to articulate myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it took some time. I would definitely say that I was always artistically inclined because I was dancing since I was in fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
So there was always an interest in music and movement and
Mm-hmm.
what aesthetically looks pleasing on screen. So that was always there. And then I did dabble into a lot of theater during my school days.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably lingered on, And when you're in a boarding school, an all boys boarding school that is um, uh, slightly pretentious with its movie picks and
Mm-hmm.
the literary influences in their life, you're kind of bottom of the barrel when you have a love for Hindi cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I did have a uh, condescending reaction. People had condescending reactions to my love for Hindi cinema, but it was something that was always there.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably became 10 times more when I joined Delhi University, where I had very like minded people who loved Hindi cinema as much as I
Uh-huh.
did. Um, So I feel like being artistically inclined, loving the stage, always performing for years, definitely helped. But I
Mhm.
wouldn't say that I was reading Samuel Beckett and trying to understand its nuances. Then, yeah.
What did you study in DU?
Funny. I studied BCom honors.
Okay.
I see. Also, you have to realize my digital journey started in 2015,
Right.
and I remember when you get out of boarding school
Mhm.
and you've been conditioned in a particular way to just make the most money, do a financial consultancy job, and that's probably the be it end all of everything. Uh, I knew I was gonna dance on the side, but I was never thinking about it from a professional angle.
Yeah.
And I remember when the boards had ended, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get 99%, go to SRCC, and I'm going to become a consultant, probably go to the States at 25, all of that.
Nice. Your whole
Um,
plan was laid out.
fully. But I remember then I got an okay percentage, got into Hansraj, got into BCom or whatever. But the reason why I got the percentage or got into Hansraj was because I auditioned through ECA. I was dancing on stage and I got admission through ECA and then got into
Wow.
the 97.25 or whatever that cutoff was. So I was like, dude, and then I had to work with the dance society in that college for 2 years
Okay.
because they got me admission. And then I
Right.
was like, dude, like, why am I lying to myself?
Mhm.
I felt like you were conditioned in that competition to believe that everyone has that one goal. But
Mhm.
now when I see my peers, everyone's doing their own thing
Mhm.
across, different industries. So I feel like it was more a product of boarding school culture and what we should do versus what we really wanted to do. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So you were a hopeful like dance kid. You must have participated in all the fests and the events. And like,
Oh
did
yeah, yeah,
everyone know
yeah.
you as Anmol, that guy who dances? Was
Oh
that
yeah,
like
yeah,
your
yeah.
reputation?
I was the curly hair kid from 2012 to 14 whose hair dances more than his body. And I remember that I was I have performed in every college in Delhi University. I have also done my fair share of Bits Pilani and IIT Bombay and all of these fests that happen.
Hmm.
But that's a different era altogether where we used to wear like low V-neck, tickly material costumes, and we used to dance on the most absurd music. But
Okay.
it was the rage back then, and we used
Uh-huh.
to win all these competitions. Hansraj had a hugely popular dance society. So those years were quite eventful. But I remember at that same time, what I don't know why I had this huge urgency to work. I was like, screw
Hmm.
this, I need to work right now, and all of that. And while all my friends were having the time of their life just chilling in college, I was like, no, 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 I need to work. So I remember by second year, I had joined the Kingdom of Dreams in Gurgaon,
Mm.
which was used to host musicals. So there used to be a musical called Zangura, and there used to be a musical called Jhumru. So I had joined Jhumru, which was a musical dedicated to Kishore Kumar singles.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I remember dancing with Gaurav Gera, who's like a very popular TV actor, and thinking, oh dude, this is the stage, this is life, this is going to be my future, and all of that.
Uh-huh.
And I remember I had started assisting the company for choreography and all of that. So I was pretty clear on the fact that it's going to be related to the performance arts. But I remember also that this was the same time where YouTube was really
Yeah.
blooming. And I was like, dude, like there are such less creators in India who are doing anything. So I remember experimenting with the content then, and I was like, probably the movie space is something that no one's doing in India. So I remember
Hmm.
it was definitely right place at the right time because the market right now is saturated as hell.
Yeah.
So, but 2015, 16, 17 was when I really went to the movie route, and it like sort of picked up from
Yeah.
there.
I was going through your YouTube channel. I saw that your first video was posted, what, 7 years ago? It was the dance cover of Sweater Weather.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah,
really nice. I was like, oh,
yeah.
small and small.
Yeah.
And then I see, I think your third video was a movie review.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was you in your, I'm guessing your bedroom with like one light and
Yeah.
that background music that all of us seem to use when
Yeah.
we start off on YouTube.
The iMovie.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that iMovie music.
Yeah.
So when you look at Small and Mole back then, like how do you remember that time?
Oh, so desperate to like get any recognition or
Uh-huh.
anything, for anything to happen. Sacha, what's crazy is at that point of time, it was a combination of the family thinking that you're a deadbeat and
Mm-hmm.
you haven't made anything about of your life despite having the education and the college you come from,
Mm-hmm.
and this innate belief that something will happen.
Yeah.
And it and people consider that to be crazy at that time. And I remember my peers coming to me and be like, what the fuck are you doing, yeah? Like, what is these
Yeah.
mysticals that you're talking about? What are these like random videos that you're making with voiceovers? And I remember being like, you're not understanding the potential that I'm probably seeing of this space. So
Mm-hmm.
I was that crazy kid who was like, oh dude, pata nahi kya kar raha hai yaar, pagal ho gaya hai. That type of situation was happening. And I remember being like so inclined towards like, okay, we're going to upload every 2 days, we're going to do
Mm-hmm.
something or the other, because somehow this will pick up. I can see it picking up somehow or the other. And then it was just about making it a system, because
Mm-hmm.
it is a occupation where it's all about consistency is one thing, but
Mm-hmm.
if you don't provide structure for yourself, then there's literally no longevity for you. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt like the moment I create structure of what clicks, then I can probably grow an audience and then do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it picked up from there. But I remember being like absolutely like desperate for like, dude, I got 1,000 views on a Game of Thrones reaction. I was like, yes.
I can
So,
imagine because YouTube is one of the hardest social media platforms to crack because Facebook and Instagram, it's Facebook was the easiest to get views. Instagram was also fairly easy, but YouTube getting even like 10 views is like wow because A, it's hard to get discovered on the platform because algorithm. B, it's actually finding something that clicks with your audience. What was the moment that you felt like okay, my content and my channel is clicking with people?
so I remember I had done, at that point of time, some of the listicles were really picking up, and they were about underrated films, best
Mhm.
thrillers, and all of these like pretty generic videos. And what I was trying to integrate in most of those videos was a little bit of a personality where I would crack jokes in the middle or whatever it is,
Mhm.
so that the person knows who is giving this perspective. But I remember I had posted a video on Tamasha, which
Mhm.
was sort of a social commentary on why the movie failed and probably why it connected with me so badly.
Mhm.
And then I feel like people associated a personality to that voice after that.
Right.
And I remember very clearly a huge audience had come because people had loved that film, and it had failed. And this was before the digital boom had started. So
Mhm.
people had tried to revisit that film through satellite and other, avenues. And I feel like that really created a community in talking about movies that have failed and are not recognized enough.
Mhm.
And I feel like that really grew, of perspectives beyond the listicles, beyond the general content, of providing a perspective of your unique experience with that film.
Mhm.
And then it grew from there. And then I probably think 2018 was when I started doing regular reviews.
Right.
And that's where it really picked up. And the pandemic was also huge, because everyone was
Yeah.
glued. Yeah.
The Tamasha video that you mentioned, how many months into your YouTube channel did you post that video? I'm trying to get a sense of how
Yeah.
long did you
No,
realize, yeah, did you
so I'll
take?
tell you, for the first year, I wasn't making anything on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I remember experimenting with weird challenges and reaction videos and stuff, and nothing was really clicking. So I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I probably need to leave this behind. 2016, when I started doing the listicles, the revenue started generating.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I had hit my first $100 threshold, I was like, damn, I'm going to make so much money over here. And when that happened, I was like, okay, right now, let me just work as a machine so that I just post content after content with the listicles and then let at least the subscriber base pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember for a good 6 months, I would make like $300 or like, a pretty nominal amount where I was thinking if this grows,
Mm-hmm.
probably there's a future for this. But I remember 2016 was also a time where I had to do something on the side while I was doing YouTube. So I remember I
Right.
was doing choreography with various companies at that same time. But 2017, 18, when I started doing more personal videos on like unique perspectives about personal connections with films and everything, that's when a huge audience did come in.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, so it took a good, I'll say 2 years for it to become 2.5 years probably for it to become
Mm-hmm.
full time. um, but 2018 onwards, I haven't looked back because
Yeah.
it's been full time since.
It's an important point that you bring up, that you took a significant amount of time, to build up your channel, build out your channel. Because usually when we start out on social media, we always think that, oh, the first video is going to go viral. You just imagine that it's going to succeed for some reason. So it's a good reality check for people who are looking to, succeed. And also a good reminder that just whatever you're doing, keep at it, because you never know. You're constantly refining your craft, right, with each single video. Like when you look at your first video to your video now, there's
Yeah,
a huge difference,
yeah,
especially that background music isn't there
yeah, yeah,
anymore.
yeah. No, it's
um,
it's so essential, especially if you're thinking about doing it full time. It is
mhm,
so essential to understand that there's a huge period, lull period, which will
mhm,
probably um, make you think about it twice or thrice. Is like, why did I
yeah,
start this? So if you're here for the quick monetary perspective, then I don't think YouTube is really the game for a lot of people because it is long form content and something
yeah.
that should be connecting with the audience. Instagram, though, is like I'm also trying to like understand the game, but it's a hit and a miss. Yeah,
Oh, it's interesting. You're going from like long form to short form, and I'm moving more from short form to long form. And they're both very different. They both need different approaches. But I think Instagram, the while you can get discovered very fast, you can get views really quickly, because the platform doesn't pay you. It doesn't make sense as a that's that being your only career base. And one more thing, like I think when the audience sees your videos, they feel like it's very easy, but your specific genre of content is actually quite hard to produce, because you can't use any footage or any interviews even in your listicles, because you'll immediately get one copyright strike.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So you have to contend with just stills and
yeah,
your narrative,
yeah,
um, which is really hard to do. Kudos to you for keeping someone's attention for 10 minutes with just
yeah.
images and a voiceover. So
But
how do
it's
you?
become more and more tough. I must say,
Mhm.
it's become more and more tough. So I've had to like like, perform like gags in the middle just to be like, "Hey guys, I'm still here." Yeah. It's not an AI voice right now.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, how do you approach writing for a video?
So I've definitely come to terms with the fact that a lot of people are coming to the channel because they don't want BS in the middle. They
Mm-hmm.
don't want, comedic gags in the middle or me
Mm-hmm.
trying to integrate my personality and being like, hey guys, influencer here.
Mm-hmm.
So they like the fact that, it comes to the point, I talk about the film and I'm out. And so what I've realized is for the reviews, it's best to be on point of what the bullet points are or what the themes are that I
Mm-hmm.
connected with or disconnected with. But when it comes to videos which are like, I'll tell you, I did a video recently, just day before yesterday, which was what if K3G released today?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the perspective of the video was, think that it's 2001 right now
Mm-hmm.
and the digital age exists. How
Mm-hmm.
would we review K3G if it released on a Friday?
Mm.
So that's where you have to like integrate your personality a bit inside the video so that you're like, so that it's Anmol that you're connecting with, who's
Mhm.
providing this fresh perspective rather than, hey guys, this is the review. I
Yeah.
feel like with those entertaining videos and like Matlab Kuch Bhi series that I have, which talks about like sort of regressive content back in the day,
Mhm.
I have to keep on sort of providing my personal takes in the middle
Mhm.
versus what's the politically correct thing to say constantly. So with the reviews, I'm still pretty straightforward. I feel like a lot of people keep the video on and just listen to it rather than
Mhm.
even paying attention, because they're like, okay, he's just going to say it, I'm going to listen to it like a podcast.
Mhm.
But when it comes to those videos which are a little tough to produce with the clips and stuff which are
Yeah.
talking about commentaries, I have to be like, hey guys, I have a face who is providing this perspective, because it helps in the production companies also to acknowledge that I'm not just taking their content and pasting it.
Yes.
It's a commentary on it, but it's a gray space, because they don't like criticism, and
Mhm.
they can abuse the copyright system. And I've been
So
screwed over
much.
many times. Yeah.
I can imagine, like, I know particularly among all the other channels or the companies, the ones that own music rights are the quickest to put one copyright strike, or even movies. So, what are some instances when you've had to navigate the space of getting a copyright strike from someone?
I remember one time was very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Was that so? I remember, at one point of time when I did not fully understand the copyright system was when I got like probably 25, 30 copyright claims on one day. Okay.
Okay.
Which was from one production company. And I didn't contest it because I was too small back then. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, I probably have to be a little conservative with using a lot of the clips from this production company.
Mm-hmm.
There is one production company that's notorious for copyright striking you. So you
Yeah.
never use their clips.
I know who
Okay.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing that happened, I remember, was that I had done a dance cover on a very popular song,
Mm-hmm.
which immediately gets copyright claimed anyway. So I
Yeah.
don't make those videos to earn anything, because they get claimed by the production company. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember I still got a copyright strike on that video. And I was like, what the hell? What happened over here? And then I seeked out for the person who did the copyright strike, and I realized that it was the artist's manager. And I remember
Okay.
calling the manager and being like, sir, like, what have you done? He's like, how dare you use our bloody music for your what? I was like, sir, I haven't earned a penny from it. And the production company that owns the single of your artist has claimed the video. He's like, oh my God, these production companies are taking so much money out of my pocket. I was like, sir, but listen, take the claim back. Then he was like, okay.
Oh no.
6 months later, he copyright strike the video again. And I was like, dude, I'm the same guy you spoke to. What are you doing? He said, oh, yeah, yeah, you. I was like, God, this is bad. So there's definitely notorious production companies, one or two, who just hate any form of usage. And
Mm-hmm.
there's one particular news channel that hates their clips being used. So I don't. So you steer away from it. You pick your battles. Now there's no point
Yeah.
in fighting it. Yeah.
Yeah, and although, but it's sometimes so tempting. You're like, oh, like having this would make the video so much better. And you want to give the best experience for your audience, right? Like, it's so frustrating sometimes when you can't give the proper context. Like, there are some parts where you mention about underrated scenes or like controversial scenes in movies, and you can't show the scene, but you're showing
Yeah.
like clips, right? And as an audience, I'm like, I just want to see the video, but
Yeah.
I know that you cannot provide it, so that must be quite frustrating. But I guess it's a path that everyone kind of learns to navigate, because when you join, you don't really think about these things. Even the music, background music you use in your videos,
It becomes
it's
like
like,
elevator music at one point of
yeah.
time. And also what I realized was the catch 22 that we were talking about before this. There is a benefit in the relationship you create with some of these production companies, because they can
Hmm.
help you out in some of these situations. So I've been grateful for times where I've really loved a film and I've had a lovely discussion with the cast. And that's
Hmm.
also like a perfect world.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that often. And if there is any misconception, any issue, then at least you have a personal relationship which can get resolved easily.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. But most guys want to screw with you. They're like, screw this guy.
I want to know, like, has there ever been a situation where you've given a review for a movie, but after you've seen all the comments from your audience and the discussion, you've kind of changed your opinion about it?
Oh yeah, 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 it's happened. I actually did a video on this, I think a year ago, where I did roasting my own reviews
Mm-hmm.
because I changed my perspective about those films. I remember watching Bulbul on Netflix and having the perspective that it's not scary enough,
Mm-hmm.
and then trying to understand where I forgot the intention of the film, and especially on the ignorant perspective that I have as a man
Mm-hmm.
on what I didn't find horrifying, which was a sense of, not even a sense of horrifying abuse, and
Mm-hmm.
a commentary on that, on patriarchy and the existence of women every day. And I felt like I was so narrow minded in
Mm-hmm.
the rush of reviewing a movie, where I was so genre specific that I couldn't really understand what the commentary was of the film,
Mm-hmm.
which it did so effectively. But it was the fluff for me. And I was like, why am I not getting jump scares? Why am I not getting a ghost that really scares me?
Yeah.
Which wasn't the point of the film at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember rewatching it and talking about it, saying that, wow, I completely missed the ball regarding that film. And I remember having a fresh perspective of Kabir Singh as well, the infamous Kabir Singh topic,
Mm-hmm.
which was that, there's one thing about flawed characters being portrayed and one thing about glorifying them.
Right.
And I felt like in the conviction that the actors had brought to the table and how beautifully the music was integrated into the film, I almost went on a tirade in the review to talk about how essential it is for flawed characters to be in movies,
Mm-hmm.
not understanding that his victory in the end is probably sending a wrong message of him being noble, or him
Mm-hmm.
being, in love, so it's justified.
Correct.
Um, so I remember, like, very foolishly referencing movies like Scarface and like Taxi Driver,
Mm-hmm.
not understanding that those perspectives also didn't have a sense of victory in the end for those
Mm-hmm.
characters. They got their ultimate, whatever their they reaped whatever happened in their life, which were their conscious decisions,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like Kabir was one guy who made those conscious decisions and still got a happy ending, which
Mm-hmm.
I had to acknowledge again and provide that perspective. These two movies definitely stood out. The political movies are something that I just can't revisit because they are so a product of that time, and the
Mm.
pressure that comes with ये review नहीं किया तूने तो तेरा तो जान ले लेंगे and all of
Oh
that.
no.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you try to stay away from that. Yeah.
How do you keep up with reviewing so many releases coming out every week, OTT shows? How do you keep up with watching all of these things?
I am now, especially with the saturation, you definitely have to pick. I feel
Mhm.
like there are too many series, there are too many movies that are directly digitally releasing, and then there are theatrical releases. I feel
Mhm.
like you have to just, even though a lot of this subscribers are not really happy with that perspective, because a lot of why the channel started was to talk about underrated films and
Yeah.
movies that are going unnoticed. But then you also have to be, I feel like, practical about the fact that I have to make sure that a movie or a video gets packaged in such a way that it reaches maximum eyes. And
Mhm.
I feel like I would never be of the perspective of just doing content so that it meets that 30-40,000 viewership and then I'm
Mhm.
okay with it. My intention as a creator should be that that underrated piece also should be packaged in such a way that it reaches 100,000, 200,000 people.
Mhm.
So, then you probably have to understand it from a marketing perspective of probably packaging that underrated piece with something that's popular
Mhm.
and then present it.
Mhm.
So that's what I try to do consistently, especially because especially because I've started doing a lot of, since 2018, a lot of Tamil, Telugu, and Malayalam content.
Right. Hmm.
Um, a lot of the times they have a lot of their small films have a very limited viewership, so it's important to somehow package it in a way where it reaches a wider audience. Yeah.
Are you ever able to just enjoy a movie? Or are you constantly in your mind like taking notes about different aspects of the movie?
My notepad's definitely on constantly, but because I don't review a lot of the English films, so I
Hmm.
can sit and relax. But now also there's Oppenheimer and Barbie is coming out,
Yeah.
so there's such a huge demand for it. So there's no way I can relax it right now.
Which one are you going to watch first?
Oh
Oppenheimer
God.
or Barbie?
I got dragged yesterday. Because I said that this whole debate was on how Barbie's advanced bookings in India are less because we live in a misogynistic
Oh, we're so
society.
sexist. Oh, yeah,
And
I
I was
saw
just
that.
like, oh, I was like, so my entire perspective was, dude, Nolan's making movies since the mid 2000s. He has a huge
Hmm.
fan base here. There's no social commentary here. It's like, oh, typical misogynistic pig. And I was just like, oh my God. But I'm definitely watching Oppenheimer first. And
Uh-huh.
then in the evening going for Barbie. But I'm reviewing both of them, of course. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would imagine that most people would take that route because you want to be like devastated by something and then you want something light to pick you up.
For
Like,
sure, for
I
sure,
think
for sure.
everybody's going that route. But yeah, interesting that you said that because there's all this hype about Oppenheimer and how you should watch it on a particular kind of screen and all of these lengths that Nolan has gone through and all the actors talking about how intense it was. That now I know the hype. I want to watch like what is this movie? What's it gonna be? And be ready for that experience, and doesn't necessarily mean that I'm being sexist. I mean, I love
Yeah.
Barbie too, but
But also it's so reflective of how impactful meme culture is on how
Mhm,
this entire Barbie versus Oppenheimer meme has turned into a movement of which movie you're going for. I
mhm.
don't know how much it's pushed by the production company, but I think it's been stellar to the point where everyone's talking about it.
Yeah,
So the moment it becomes a pop culture event, you're like, shit, man, they've really marketed this well.
yeah. I
Uh,
remember like you remember Om Shanti Om and Savaria came out on the same day, and it was all about like which one's better, which one's better. So there had to be like a clear winner and a clear loser,
yeah.
and I think that's the mindset people are going into this face off as well.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people who are like Nolan stands are going to thrash Barbie for the sake of it,
Hmm.
just because it's a face off. And I remember Savaria bore the brunt of that when it released. I remember there's actually a huge feud that went behind the scenes before that
Hmm.
those two movies came out, and how they wanted to sabotage the Sanjay Leela Bhansali film. It's quite funny.
Oh, the drama that plays out in real life
Oh,
as well. It's crazy. Um, you know, your audience who's been following you along your journey, they've been really loving the fact that you've gone from filming in your room by yourself to now interviewing some of the biggest stars in the country and the world. And I have to say, you are an excellent interviewer, especially the questions that you ask. They are very thought provoking and they allow the person you're interviewing as well to introspect quite a bit. And I saw that especially in the Russo brother interview, the questions that you had for them. And you didn't even have a paper in front of you. You were just asking those. I was like,
then
wow,
you know
how is
what
he doing
happened?
this?
Typical
What?
subscriber base. They picked on a millisecond frame where they could see my hand, which had some of these bullet points, and they're like, "Ah, you've got a cheat sheet. What the hell?"
Oh, so you're
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah.
tell me.
No,
Mm.
see those junkets are there's so much pressure because they're like 10 minutes, 10 minutes out, 10 minutes out. So immediately when you're in the 8-minute mark, they're just like behind the camera like this. And
Yeah.
you're like, fuck, I need to somehow bounce. So you're almost finding the perfect time to interject or stop their answer so that you can ask your next
Yeah.
question. So it's a lot of that, and trying to still deal with the pressure of like 17 managers being like this. Um, so
I
yeah,
can imagine.
yeah.
And Also, considering the fact that these, during press junkets, these actors are on interview after interview after interview, and they are quite exhausted, honestly, by the questions. So, what is your preparation process for making sure that you have a meaningful, insightful interview with them?
So what I've realized also is that the quality of film journalism, just in general, is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So the generic questions that are coming is something that they are almost have become desensitized to. So
Yeah.
they're just like on robot mode, just like as AI is reacting, replying to the same thing. So when a question does come about the craft or the film or their
Mhm.
filmography, they're like, "Oh my god, where were you?"
Finally. Yeah.
So I feel like it's the bare minimum that anyone should do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that there's a prevalence of just mediocrity that has thrived, and there are a lot of people who are part of these organizations and they've carried on for those 15, 20 years, and they're doing the rapid fires and would you rathers and all of those challenges. And anything that's out of that ordinary situation, they're like so blown away by it. So
Mm-hmm.
see, I am the reason why I love to interact with some of these actors is because I love films. I love them, especially if I say yes to an actor's interview, it's because I really like them.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be about the craft, their filmography, or their perspectives, and I feel like very few are really doing a deep dive on that. So they're just enamored by the fact that someone's doing their homework, which I
Mm-hmm.
would believe is the bare minimum,
Yeah.
you know? So it's more
Yeah.
that.
I'm sure.
Because if you look at those trailer launch events and they're
Yeah.
they're asking like बाइक में बैठोगे तो पीछे आपके कौन चाहिए आपको सनी लियोन चाहिए कि दिशा पाटनी चाहिए and you're like what is happening, and like Vicky Kaushal's get married, so he's like हाँ चलो आप अब lip lock करोगे कि नहीं, so that's the quality of the question,
Hmm.
so I mean if you're going from there to someone being slightly more responsible, and even though I'm freaking out in my mind when they're
Yeah.
there because I'm a fan. But you just make sure you get like a good nuanced discussion, and I feel like they're also happy with it. Yeah.
And what about when you're interviewing like four people, four members of a cast
The
at the same time?
worst. The worst. I feel like it's probably the worst because you have again restricted time and then four people. So you want
Mm-hmm.
to be respectful to everyone who's there. And then if one guy or girl, with all due respect to them, just blabbers on, then you're like, okay, this is gone. It's like,
Yeah. And you can't even interrupt, right? And be like, so.
yeah, yeah. So, no, I would always say like the individual interviews are the best,
Mm-hmm.
maximum two people. But the worst is when, you get approached by a PR teams like, sir, इनके साथ interview है आप करेंगे, and you're like हाँ हाँ, and then they're like थोड़ा ना विटी विटी सा थोड़ा आइडिया हमें सोचना चाहिए थोड़ा इनोवेटिव and I would be like, see sir, the thing is that I understand your perspective, but the channel में अगर मैं एक ऐसा टाइप का इंटरव्यू करूंगा ना, then it'll reach a larger audience, so I don't need to do these quips or like challenge
Mm.
videos or whatever. They're like, अच्छा नहीं नहीं चलो एक तो कुछ would you rather या फिर two truths one lie, and I was like, dude, that's my biggest thing that I
Yeah.
can't do them. Yeah, yeah.
I can imagine. Would you rather be on this interview right now or leave?
Because I remember very vividly, the entire cast of the movie was there, which I
Hmm.
who I had to interview, and so I had all these like questions to ask about their filmography and their performance and their chemistry together and history, whatever it is. But before my interview, there was a food company interview. So the girl hosting was representing the food company and was like,
Hmm.
"What do you want, chole bhature or samosa?" And they were asking answering these questions. I was like, "It's going to be such a leap from whatever's happening right now."
A very Barbie Oppenheimer moment right
Oh
there.
God! But
Yeah.
as I was saying previously, they do think that I'm a I don't know what happens, but they look at me and sometimes have a perception of me. So they're like, "What is this? Who is this guy?"
Mm.
Right? And I've had several times where I can see someone's disinterested, but it takes a question or two to be like, for them to get engaged, and they're like, "Okay, this probably guy has something to ask,
Yeah.
which deserves my attention."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but you work around it. It's
Yeah.
always best when they have an idea of who you are, because
Mm-hmm.
like I remember my best interview has been with Johnny Abraham,
Mm-hmm.
and it was because he had an idea of what I do, and he just didn't come with an entourage, just landed up, spent an
Mm-hmm.
hour with us. So, and that's very rare. So yeah.
Who's the best celebrity you've interviewed so far?
I would say John for sure. Nasruddin Shah was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I was slightly intimidated and concerned whether I'll have the intellectual capability to keep up with him, but he was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And who else? I would definitely say John Abraham was like the most comfortable interview I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them have been great. I recently interviewed Vidya Balan also, and she was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that you have, if they're just in the right mood and they have a context of who you are, it's just perfect. But
Yeah.
there are so many times where they're not in the mood and they're like, who the fuck is this guy? And like,
Yeah. Their days are also like they've back to back to back interviews, people asking them the same questions. I'm sure they must be like exhausted.
fully.
It can be quite intimidating to interview celebrities, right? Especially being a fan of the movies for so many years. So, do you have any icebreakers or conversation starters that help build that rapport?
And I don't, the particular environment doesn't really is not conducive for the same.
Mm-hmm.
So their entourage is always around them.
Mm-hmm.
The moment they disperse, it's like action.
You
So
have to go.
the concept of me standing next to them or sitting next to them or having a conversation with them is very limited. I remember Anil Kapoor had landed up before his stipulated time, and he just sat next to me, and I was just like, what do I do? And then he's like, bata kya chal raha hai? And I was like, yeah, it's a thing. And that's so rare. That's why I'm a little like taken aback by it. What's good is when you have so I guess some of the actors watch the channel, so
Mm-hmm.
I do meet them outside of the film. So, like, if you're in Bandra and Juhu, you're gonna bump into them somewhere or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have interacted with a lot of actors that way. And if I meet them for the interview, they're like, "Hey, what's up?"
Yeah.
So they're chill that way.
And some
Uh,
of them even mention, right? Oh, yeah, hey, I follow your channel. Like when you
yeah,
introduce
yeah, yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
What does that feel like? Like they're watching me?
Uh, it kind of it's great. It's really nice, but it kind of scares me because then I have to think about it whether I really hated that film or what did I say about them or whatever. But I guess there is a reason why some of the actors do watch the channel, because it doesn't get personal, it doesn't get ugly
Mhm.
with the perspective on the film. So I guess they resonate with the thing that he isn't nasty with his perspective. So
Mhm.
uh, they think, oh, chalo, he's good, we can deal with him.
Mhm.
But I would still say that the most intimidated I've been probably is or taken aback was when I met Madhuri Dixit, and I was like,
Okay.
she really did um, illuminate a bit. So I looked at her and I was like, damn, now that's a star. Yeah. So, and that's happened not that often. But when I looked
Mhm.
at her, I was like, damn, okay. She like had such a command and presence about herself, and she was just so chill. I remember like being like, okay, very few people possess that kind of like, presence. Yeah.
Mm. Who's your dream person to interview?
Oh God. Uh, the dream definitely is a few people.
Mhm.
Uh, Shah Rukh Khan is one of them, of course.
Everybody
Yeah,
says Shah Rukh Khan.
yeah.
Why
But
do you think that is? Is it because he's so rare to interview or he's such an enigma?
no, so he wasn't rare to interview before 2018. He
Mm.
was like the media's baby. He was always there for interviews, even before, not even before his movies. He would just do,
Hmm.
random events with news companies and stuff. But I feel like he's not really happy with the news coverage of him lately, so he doesn't want to do any interviews.
Right.
And I feel like it's a little far off as a dream, but probably you never say never.
Mm-hmm.
And but probably the most impactful actor for me in terms of loving movies has been Hrithik Roshan. And
Mm.
I would absolutely love to interview him.
In your
And
interview, would you dance together?
oh God. If I don't get an interview opportunity, I'll definitely do a 6-second reel with him and be like, sir, let's just move. I don't need your perspective. Let's just do something. Yeah. But like these two people are like have been like really impactful in my formative years of falling in
Mm-hmm.
love with cinema. So they're definitely the dream. And uh, Tabu and Kareena Kapoor as well because of again history. I feel like when I meet them I'll be like, shit dude, I've been watching them for like 25 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them. And I have like huge dreams to like interact with Prithviraj Sukumar and Fahad Fasil. And if I can interview Surya from the Tamil cinema,
Mm-hmm.
if I can interact with Dhanush, which I just missed the opportunity because the Gray Man was supposed to be with him and the Russo brothers, but he had
Mm-hmm.
like other
Oh
meetings to go
no.
for.
Mm.
Uh, and one of my favorite Telugu actors is Nani, who I would
Mm-hmm.
love to interact with one day. So yeah, there'll still a lot of those benchmarks. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mention a lot of regional cinema actors as well, which is something I've seen on your channel. It's one of the few, I think, mainstream review channels that started off with Bollywood and now is including regional cinema as well. Um, why did you start doing that?
I remember um, because the channel is primarily in English,
Mm-hmm.
there is a huge subscriber base that is in the southern states.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times when I would be talking about underrated films or talking about films that are going unnoticed, I would get recommendations from films down south, which was especially from Tamil Nadu and Kerala.
Mm.
So I remember then being like, okay, listen, it's about time that you understand that a huge subscriber base is there. Their second
Mm-hmm.
language is not Hindi, it's English.
Correct.
So you might as well really take a deep dive into several of their nuances and understand what's happening there. And I remember probably my first video was on a Tamil thriller called Ratchasan. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember that there was a huge uptake of people being like, finally, you've understood, what we've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then slowly and steadily my love for Kerala really really grew because that's when I was from the years of 2019 to 2021 was really when I was watching movies like Virus. I was
Mm-hmm.
watching the Tamil movie Super Deluxe. Then
Oh.
2021 I
Mm.
remember Great Indian Kitchen, Malik and Joji. So many of these movies had landed up. And I remember in 2019 Jallikattu had come out,
Mm-hmm.
and I had then fallen in love with Lee Jojo's Pilisari. So this was the exploration where I had started to ignore Hindi cinema. And they were like, hey, what are you doing? Uh, so people still like come after me for being a real like proponent for Malayalam and Tamil cinema, but their storytelling is just far, far superior to what's happening in Hindi cinema from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I just 3 days ago went for a Tamil film called Maviran, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a commercial superhero film that's done just so well, which made me realize that Hindi cinema is definitely lagging behind in trying to understand how to make a cohesive, fun commercial film.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you just recognize when good stuff is happening, yeah, irrespective
Yeah.
of the region where it's coming from. I don't understand why people are constantly looking at the intention behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one, I feel seen and heard because after years of telling my friends that, Malayalam cinema, there's so much more to it, or like all of these movies that you talk about, they're all remakes of our movies. It feels nice to finally have someone look at it from a different lens. Um, and also, I see Bollywood doing that a lot more, but in such a horrible way, in the sense that they just bring on these actors from the South because they know that they have a big base, but they don't utilize them well. They misunderstand the culture so badly and make such a bad mishmash of it. So, is there other times where you feel like, okay, I need to do a little bit of research because I want to be careful about the cultural nuances in this piece?
See, it especially, my relationship with Malayalam cinema especially became slightly more nuanced was when I was doing a lot of Matlab Kuch Bhi series, what was
Mm-hmm.
happening was that the regressive notions were prevalent in all industries, including Malayalam cinema in the mid 2000s and early 2010s,
Mm-hmm.
where probably even the legends like Mohanlal and Mammootty were doing pretty generic commercial films.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was that people told me to revisit the golden age,
Mm-hmm.
which was the 80s and 90s. And then that's when I understood the context of why people have fallen in love with some of the stories that were being led by these stars.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember in trying to understand what are the emotional beats and nuances, or even the perspective of what are the social issues that several industries are focusing on. And I felt like Tamil and Malayalam cinema was especially providing a commentary on the caste system and the existence of women in society today, whereas Telugu cinema was mostly still commercial blockbusters.
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized was, especially when I saw a movie like Meenakshi Sundareshwaram,
Mm-hmm.
it provided me such a perspective of how far away we are from the
Mm-hmm.
idea of what the southern states represent. And I felt like it provided me another perspective also, what Chennai Express was, what Ravan was, and what they were
Oh my
doing.
God.
You know,
Oh, that movie still haunts me till today.
exactly, and a blockbuster film, if you think about
Mm.
it. And it still reinstates the notion of labeling them what Mahmood used to do in movies like Padosan, and where the person will still be wearing a lungi, wearing pan eating, ash forehead, and will be constantly speaking in a sing song manner. And I
Mm.
felt like it reinstated the same thing, same notion, same restrictive mindset, and it's still prevalent in Hindi cinema, to the point where even if a Yogi Babu is put into the screenplay, he'll be the butt of the joke or the comedic gag in the
Mm.
screenplay. Versus Tamil cinema, having recognized his acting potential, can make him a lead in a movie like Mandela.
Mm-hmm.
So I've definitely tried to understand, especially by watching the director's interviews of what they intended behind doing in that film. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of their intention comes from the experiences they've had with cinema that have gone on for years.
Mm-hmm.
So that context becomes very important when you're reviewing those films, because I am still an outsider.
Right.
So even though I get the criticism of being a Northy who doesn't understand the culture when I don't like the film, but
Yeah.
I'm this man who embraces the culture when I love it. Uh, it is, I understand where they come from when they're like, I'm probably short sighted in my opinion regarding certain
Mm-hmm.
themes. Um, like I remember watching Kantara and being like, okay, this is something that I don't understand. This is not something that I've lived with. This is not something I've grown up with. It still impacts me, but
Mm-hmm.
it's important to understand how this is probably something that someone's grown up with all their life.
Yeah.
And and understand the intention behind those gods and what they represent and why they're revered so much. So I
Yeah.
feel like doing that homework before the reviews becomes essential, but you'll always not be doing enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And have your back and forth in the comment section with people and be like, okay, probably this is something that I need to read up more on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice to have that sort of community to give you feedback on your work, because a lot of other movie critics do not have that freedom. Like, or
Yeah.
they'll be on Twitter and people will not be engaging in a constructive way. They'll just be like, "Oh, you're biased. Oh, you got paid, etc., etc." Oh, and I have to ask you this: a large section, not large, a section of the internet believes that you have a soft corner for Ranbir Kapoor,
Hmm.
and is that true?
See, it again probably stems from the fact, I have a thesis about this,
Mm-hmm.
is that our formative years of at least millennials
Mm-hmm.
um, was the age from 2010 to 2020, probably.
Mhm.
Okay. Or 2008, when you were 16, when I was 14 years old when 2008, and till 2015 when I graduated from college.
Mhm.
Okay. And this is the time where Ranbir Kapoor did all of his coming of age stories. Okay.
Mhm.
He did Wake Up Sid, he did Tamasha, he did Ye Jawani Hai Diwani, and all of these movies. Even though I'm not a fan of Ye Jawani Hai Diwani, uh,
Sh- All your fans are like,
yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah. But
Betrayal.
I'm not a fan of his character, and
Mm.
especially on how smitten Deepika was throughout that film.
Yeah.
Um, but the point being that while I'm trying to formulate what I want to do with life, I could see a fictional character who was doing the same.
Mhm.
I was seeing a guy like Sid who didn't have bearings of what he wanted to do, and somehow created a niche for himself and acknowledged the privilege he came from and where
Mhm.
he probably faltered with his family. That really connected with me. Then I saw something like Tamasha, which was a perspective of someone who was doing something which he was conditioned to believe was the right thing to do, but probably always knew what he wanted to do.
Mhm.
That's different where, you've got the manic pixie girl in Deepika Padukone, and that's problematic in itself, and she dedicates her whole life to him.
Mhm.
But I'm saying his individual journey was probably something that I really connected with.
Mhm.
And this is the time where I was also formulating what I wanted to do. So I definitely connected with him as an actor. And if you actually think about it, beyond the 90s generation of actors in Hindi cinema, he's the only one who's doing a Bombay Velvet and an absolutely risky project like that, failing
Mhm.
miserably, and then still going on to do a experimental film like Jaga Jasus, which is all in
Mhm.
rhyme. So I feel like I have a respect for a person who is connecting or is doing content which is off the same commercial slate of films. And I
Mhm.
feel like he is the most popular face who is still willing to do those risks. And what I probably get criticized for is that, see, anything that's popular,
Mhm.
okay, will always be under the micro, like, it's fully I'm the main focus of what my perspective is about whenever a movie is an event film. So
Right.
my perspective on Pathan will be, okay, what does Jammy say? Let's
Mhm.
dissect it and try to understand how much he loves Shah Rukh Khan. So
Right.
Brahmastra, like that, was an event. Okay. And I remember there was so much hype around it.
Mhm.
As we did say, there's little nuance in social media. You can expect it from the subscriber base that you've cultivated over the years. You
Mhm.
can't expect it from Twitter.
Yeah.
So if on a Brahmastra review I say I did not connect with the dialogues and that love story at all, but I appreciate what their intention behind the potential of this universe is,
Mhm.
you just heard the latter of what I just said.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So their perspective becomes, how can you appreciate this film? Whereas it's way more layered than that, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to film criticism. So I feel like a lot of that criticism came from the fact that I acknowledged the potential of that world and the amazing visual effects behind it. And they were like, bhai, paid hai, kya kar raha hai? All of that. So it's same for Pathan. Pathan allowed people to have this escapism. It was a lightning in a bottle of a man returning after 4 years, and everybody wanted to celebrate that. But
Mm-hmm.
it is a throwback to the 70s and 80s dialogue bazi and action films that Amitabh Bachchan represented. And I feel like people fail to acknowledge what these movies wanted to do, versus and still having the perspective of this wasn't right, this was something that I connected
Right.
with, this was something I disagree with. So I feel like because Ranbir is such a polarizing figure,
Mm-hmm.
with his interviews always becoming news and his
Yeah.
perspectives always becoming news, any appreciation is like, dude, you just are a Ranbir fanboy. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't think it can be denied that he's one of the best actors in the commercial space in Hindi cinema, but um, I couldn't care. Like, I don't have a perspective about what he personally thinks, and these flippant remarks that are passed around about his wife or something or the other
Mm-hmm.
becomes news. And Shahid Kapoor is another figure who becomes news for his remarks,
Mm-hmm.
personal remarks. But I'm like, I'm gonna just talk about the movies, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember absolutely crapping on a movie like Shamshera, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody focused on that. And I wasn't a Ranbir fanboy then, so I don't know. Yeah.
I think also with Brahmastra, because everybody was being so vocal about how bad it was because there was so much hype about it. So people were probably they were looking for your or they were expecting you to be very harsh with your criticism. And so when they felt that that didn't come as much, they internally would be like, can't relate. So therefore you must be, biased towards him.
No, but also, Sasha, what's crazy about it, with the nature of social media, is that if something's an event
Mm-hmm.
and you've completely disconnected with the film, the want and need of that subscriber or that social media person is like, I want someone to fucking annihilate this movie. I
Yeah.
want someone
Yeah.
to shout and scream. I'm not that
Mm-hmm.
guy. You know,
Hmm.
I remember Anupama Chopra was being asked after Kabir Singh, why didn't she go after Sandeep Reddy Vanga in that interview? Why didn't she
Hmm.
attack him? Why didn't she, uh, show him a mirror to say
Hmm.
how problematic his movie was? And she said, I'm not that person. What I'm going to
Yeah.
do is, I'm going to ask him the questions on his perspective about the film, and then his nature will be out in the open. I
Mhm.
am not a person who's going to combat him like Karan Thapar and say, why the hell did you do this? And,
Mhm.
try to corner him. I'm going to tell him to give his perspective, and then the world can see how problematic or his takes are.
Yeah.
So I, as a movie reviewer, will never come after a film so bad that, unless it's absolutely horrible, like a movie like Liger, I remember I had like,
Oh my god.
absolutely annihilated. But because you could see there was zero effort. But,
Mhm.
you can, Brahmastra also had become meme culture.
Mhm.
So the meme culture then extracted, in wanting a very like angry reaction from you as a reviewer, which I felt
Mhm.
was a little unfair. I feel, because I was critical of the dialogues, but because it is also coupled with me appreciating the special effects and what the potential world can be, they're like, not good enough.
Mm.
You know.
On that note, let's go to audience questions.
Ooh.
So I got a lot of questions. And the number one question that everybody asked was, Jammy, are you single?
Oh God.
Do you
Yeah.
get this a lot in your comments?
Uh, More on my Instagram probably.
Mm-hmm.
Less in the comments. But I remember, I remember if I like deliver a gag which is reflective of me being single, then it definitely becomes a topic of discussion in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not as if like it's a cultural thing that they're like trying to like dig deep of whether I'm dating someone or not. No, not at all.
Oh, tell me, where did this nickname Jammy Pants come from?
Nobody referenced me as Anmol. Everybody called me Jamwal, Jamwal all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Was this in school?
since school,
Okay.
Nobody called me Anmol. And then Jammy stuck around because of that, because it was just easier. And then I realized that my uncle, who was in the Air Force, was also, his nickname was Jammy. So it was probably something that just became a thing,
Uh-huh.
everywhere. Uh, and one of the main reasons why I probably went with it was because I connected to a creator like PewDiePie, whose
Uh-huh.
name was Felix. So I always wanted to go with a particular social media name versus, just saying like Anmol Jamwal's here. So it's
Uh-huh.
just easier that way. Yeah.
When people meet you in public, do they call you Jammy Pants?
Yeah. They say Jammy Pants 4. You? No, no, no. Most of them are like jammy, and I feel like it's best that way. Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
that's nice. Okay. So,
Don't
oh,
people mess up your name so often?
all the time.
Satya,
That's been
Satya.
since bachpan, so it's not like a content creator difficult thing. So,
You have like
and
exact responses ready.
yeah, and the thing is, people are also very apologetic about it. They're like, "Oh, hey, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce. I know how it's spelled, but I can't pronounce." I'm like, "It's okay, it's fine." Uh, this is not an audience question, but this is something I wanted to ask you. You are kind of a public figure now, but when I was trying to do research for this interview, I found almost zero information, personal information online. Are you by nature a very private person, or was it something you consciously did because you were on the internet?
On the internet, didn't want to do many interviews talking about it, because I also felt like it was immaterial.
Mhm.
The content is about films, and I feel like my biggest debilitating sort of notion regarding social media is when you become a personality channel. And
Mhm.
when your personality channel has this constant pressure of you wanting to be entertaining, it
Mhm.
almost like gave me gave me a fear that this doesn't have longevity.
Mhm.
When the content is about um, movies, language, politics, whatever it is, I felt like you can still make that the core focus versus
Mhm.
you being the core focus. So I remember many times where I've been offered these MCN deals, and these companies who want to sign me, and the
Mhm.
entire point of them signing me is that they push me as the
Yeah.
face, and doing these interviews and doing these magazine covers and being like, hey, the new guy in town reviewing movies. I wanted to steer away from it because I felt like the business is doing well, and I feel like
Mhm.
that's the victory versus me, presenting myself as this like wannabe hero who can
Oh,
probably get a break in the movies.
yeah. Oh, that's that. I'm sure that's something people tell you also, right? You're praising this director because you want to act in his film.
Picture चाहिए तुझे. Yeah, yeah, every time.
Okay, now coming to the actual audience questions. Sanket from Kolhapur asks, "Beard क्यों नहीं रखते?"
Beard. Oh God. No, I grow a beard like in less than 24 hours, but I guess I just want to be presentable for all these interviews. It just looks scruffy and bad, I guess.
Have you
But
ever had a beard? I don't think I've ever seen a picture of you with any like
I
beard.
remember
You're
during
always
the pandemic, I had like a full Kabir Singh beard, and I was getting like scared looking at it only. But no, no, I grow a beard really fast. I just like tend to, whenever I'm going on camera, I just tend to avoid it, I guess.
no. Okay.
Yeah.
Second question is from Shreyansh from Katak. He asks, "What is one movie you loved when you were younger, but now you hate?"
Um, there's a movie called Hum Tumhare Hain Sanam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it has it has Shah Rukh, Salman, and Madhuri Dixit
Uh-huh.
with a cameo of Aishwarya Rai in the end. And I remember watching it as a kid and being like, "Oh my god, this is so melodramatic and engaging." It's one of the most horrible films you'll see again, and it's featured on the Matlab Kuch Bhi series as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one movie. If you revisit, you're like, "What the hell did I even see in this movie?" Yeah,
I think that's with a lot of movies we've watched as children because we
Yeah.
have the nostalgia factor, right?
I remember, I remember very vividly leaving Chennai Express in the interval
Mm-hmm.
and being like, what the fuck was. And I remember people being, "That's the funniest film ever." I was like, I don't get it, dude. I don't get it. So, yeah.
It's entertaining, but it's if you watch it as a person from South India, then you're like, oh, you feel uncomfortable, but you laugh, but you're like, oh, why did Deepika make? Like, I really want to know, like, why did she agree to this film? Like, I'm sure, like, she would have just viewed it as okay, it's just a funny film, but I don't think she probably realized the cultural impact it would have. With people call me Chennai Express sometimes. You're like, hey, Chennai Express. And I'm like, that's
But
not like a word
that,
you use to replace a South Indian or a Malayali or what. You're like, hey, hey, Chennai Express.
but that's what used as like a derogatory.
No, it's just instead of Madrasi, people now use Chennai Express as a term.
Oh God.
You're like, and then the jokes of the
I
ayya.
remember during the press conference before the release had come, uh, Shahrukh was like, I would never intend to offend anyone. And I
Hmm.
probably think he intends not to offend anyone. But when you see the product, I'm like, how do they not see it?
Okay, the last question is from Pam from Chennai. She asks, what's the one place in South India you really want to visit?
I really want to go to Kochi.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been. I've been to Chennai. I've been to Hyderabad. Um, but I definitely need to explore Kerala. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't explored Kerala at all. And you should have good recommendations.
Mm. I'll give some. I mean, I don't visit Kerala a lot myself,
Hmm.
but I'm sure if you ask your community, they would be
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
happy to give you recommendations. And anyway, food is excellent in Kerala.
Yeah.
Natural beauty is amazing. Uh, why no Karnataka in your list?
यही है ना problem. I know. You ignore Kannada cinema
Yeah.
every time.
No,
But you,
that's
hmm,
but sorry, I think except for Kantara, I haven't seen in recent past a Kannada movie that has at KGF.
KGF, yeah.
Correct. That's gotten so much response because it's not like Malayalam cinema is next level, I feel, and then I kind of like Tamil cinema, but Kannada is still finding its way. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that thing about Kantara, right? So I grew up in Mangalore, and this whole Bhutakola is what it's
Yeah.
called with the gods that they have, right? So I grew up with that culture. So for me, watching it, I was like, wow, finally some representation, and all those moments, I got a chill, on my skin, like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe I'm seeing this on the big screen. But when you see on Twitter, people are like, I didn't get the hype. What is this? So then you're like, you don't have the context, you don't have the
Exactly,
nuance, right?
exactly.
So
But I have to say, with Kannada cinema, the Shetty trio are the people that I really look forward to when their movies come out.
mm-hmm,
So obviously, Rishabh Shetty made Kantara,
mm-hmm,
and Raj Shetty made a movie called Garuda Gamana Vrishabha Vahana. Okay, it's a
mm-hmm.
movie on Z5, which
Okay.
is absolutely amazing. It has Rishabh with Raj together, um, and I remember watching it in the theater and being absolutely blown by it. And Rakshit Shetty is
Mm-hmm.
also a really innovative creator who I feel like, he did a movie called Avane Ram Narayana, which is like this crazy Western, which he's done so well. And he did a movie called Charlie, which was a sweet
Mm.
film with his Labrador or a golden retriever, Labrador probably.
Mhm.
But they really invest in absolutely transforming themselves and dedicating a year to particular projects. So
Mhm.
they are considered to be the Mangalore Udupi region creators who are doing something away from the commercial market, say in Kannada cinema. So I
Yeah.
really look forward to them.
Yeah, actually someone in the questions did ask a question about this Shetty trio. Uh but I didn't want to ask it, but now that you've brought it up, like whoever asked that question, you got it answered anyway.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was such a nice conversation. I've taken so much of your time. I
No,
didn't
no.
realize. But it was really, really nice talking to you. Do you have any exciting upcoming projects you want to share?
We're working on a particular non-fictional show on a streaming platform that may
Mm-hmm.
get greenlit by the end of the year. So hopefully that happens. And we have a creative wing that started, which is doing long form and short form content from a writing perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to pitch a few ideas to production companies if they can
Mm-hmm.
greenlit it, and if not, then we'll produce it ourselves.
Wow.
So yeah.
Was it intentional that tried and refused production? The acronym was TRP.
It was incidental,
Uh-huh.
and it was we chanced upon it, and it just was perfect by the end of it. So we're like, okay, we're gonna go with this. Yeah.
Awesome. So, all of you who are watching and listening, please check out all of Anmol's socials. I will put them in the description below. Keep an eye out for exciting new projects and make sure to comment on his posts. And if you have come, I mean, I'm sure you've seen him before this, but if you have chanced upon him through this podcast, then please let him know through the comments.
Oh God. Thank you
All
so much,
right.
Satya. Thank you.
Huh?
Thank you so much for calling me. This was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. And I know you don't do a lot of interviews, so I'm really like honored that you agreed to come on to
Oh
this.
God.
Okay. Bye. Why you nervous?
Yeah, this is the awkward dance when happens when someone gets a compliment. It's like you
Oh,
just
okay,
tense
okay.
up a bit.
Okay, all right. On that note, I will let you go. New episodes of Chuma Conversations with your favorite content creators will be out every Wednesday. So make sure you click on that follow or subscribe button to make sure you never miss an episode when it comes out. Have a great week ahead. Bye.